Welcome to the Garden Show. I'm Linda Stahlman, and we are at the Agricultural Research Center today. And our topic today is going to be about flowers and trees. And the guest that we have with us to talk about flowers is Joe Becker. And he's the groundskeeper, is that not true?
That's right.
At the Ag Research Center. And he has been involved with the research plots for the flowers for several years.
Many years, yes.
Many years.
Many years.
And so he's going to tell us some history and some things that he knows about the flowers beginning.
Well, what we're going to be discussing today is the Prairie Star Trials. And these have been going on for several years. They started by Alan Stevens. This began about 1998. And it was some of the designated flowers that he found to be good performers were designated as the Purple Pride. It then evolved into the Prairie Star winners, which now is what we're going to be discussing, which is right behind us. Since the first nominees or the first announcement of any Prairie Star winners started in 2001. Since 1998, we have tried over 1,600 different varieties here.
So what is the purpose of doing this testing?
What we're trying to find out is we're trying to provide the homeowners and garden enthusiasts information regarding varieties that will thrive in Kansas. We have this located in our research center, our horticulture center in Olathe. We have it also here in Hayes, at the research center in Colby, and at the horticulture farm, the John Pear Horticulture Center in Wichita. In these 4 locations, when you think about the locations, they do vary quite a bit in soil, climate, and weather, and so it puts them through the paces. If we find something we think performs well, we nominate it, or we try it again, and the variety of flower has to be perform well for the 2 years in order to make the list. Now, we've had some that have been removed. Either they're no longer available, or diseases or something has come along that makes them no longer advisable to be on our list.
So not only are the flowers beautiful when you come into the research center, they serve the purpose of being the research based for what would grow well for people in their gardens.
Yes.
And so it's a good resource for people in Kansas because our climate is harsh, especially at Hayes. We get a lot of, well, we don't always get the amount of rain as other places in Kansas, but it's very hot here, but it's hot everywhere in Kansas, I guess.
It's been quite an interesting year. Some of our trials have suffered because of the variability. We started out wet, and then it dried off and got hot, and then we went into July. We had quite a few inches of rain in July. We had 6.44 inches of rain in May. And so that gave us a good base, but in June we hardly had any, 3/4 of an inch. But then we had 4 inches of rain in July, which is just unprecedented. Then comes along August, we've only had less than a 1/2 inch of rain, and the heat has now returned. And so we've really put the flowers to their paces, but that's what we're after. We are after varieties that if they don't perform well, we want to know it here. We don't want people to bring them home, plant them, spend all this money on and time and energy planting flowers that just don't perform well. So when you look out at the gardens here, you'll notice there's some blank spots. We regard that as okay, because we want to know this here rather than in your yards.
Okay, and also would you talk a little bit about how much you water them here and whether or not you use mulch?
We do not use mulch here because of the, we try to keep it consistent through all 4 locations, and so consequently it takes a little more water than normal. We give it 1 inch a week, and provided if the rainfall doesn't come, we go ahead and water it, irrigate it.
And the mulch that I learned from Horticulture Night, that you don't mulch because the other research places do not mulch.
That's
and
right.
you want to keep it the same.
Yes.
So
But we recommend the homeowner do the mulching.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the flowers in the flower plot.
Okay.
From senior trips to toddler adventures and youth sports, the Hayes Recreation Commission is your one-stop shop for fun. Check out our 2015 Fall and Winter brochure for a complete list of scheduled events and classes. The fun times continue in the HRC Wellness Center, where you can enroll in personal training and memberships. The HRC provides fun and fitness for all ages. Visit hayesrec.org, call 785-623-2650, or stop by 1105 Canterbury in Hayes to learn more.
Did you know that most people's internet connections are too slow? Wondering if yours is? Just answer these simple questions. Do you have more than 3 connected devices to the internet? Do you stream video over your internet connection? Do you occasionally notice lagging? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you need to come see Nex-Tech about a speed upgrade so you can experience the full benefits that fiber technology has to offer. Nex-Tech, our products and people are here for you.
Welcome back, and we're here to talk about the flowers that performed well, and Joe's going to give us some background about what he thinks about them.
We planted 151 varieties this year, and out of that there's probably, I think there's maybe 20 that I like that performed well. And some of the varieties, one of the first varieties, one that really catches your eye, are the Vincas. The Vincas, they just catch your eye. I really like them. And these are of the Valiant series. We've got apricot, burgundy, a lilac, a punch, and a pure white, so there is a lot of variability. One of the advantages of this variety is it is drought tolerant, so it does not take a lot of water, and so we really look at that one and really like that aspect of it. Another variety that I think performed well was the zinnias. They're easy to grow. They have developed new varieties which you do not have to deadhead, which basically means you do not have to cut off the spent blooms. The plant takes care of them themselves. We're after minimum maintenance, minimum water, flowers for the homeowner, so this is a big plus.
That is interesting because I'm constantly deadheading, so that'd be a plus.
That
on
saves
that one.
time.
Yeah.
Yes. Another one that I found interesting is your sweet potato vine, the Ipomea. This one is, it has kind of an Italian sounding name. It's Floramia Nero. And I really like it. Traditionally, the sweet potatoes, it has a dark leaf, but it is under control now. Traditionally, they spread all over. These are rather refined in how far they spread, and they also have a really nice kind of a morning glory lilac blossom to them. I really like that.
Can I tell you my favorite?
Yes.
It's that pretty pink grass.
Oh yes, the
it's
Melenus. It's an annual grass, and it's growing. I love it when it heads out. The wind catches it and it dances about the garden, and it's great for pots. I have a pot of that up at my house, and it adds some interest. It adds some movement to your garden, and also you could leave it out there all winter, and it also would add to your landscape during the winter time. But it is an annual, so you'll have to replant it every year.
But that's something else we should talk about, and that is that all these are annuals.
Yes.
They are not perennials.
No, these are all annuals. The Prairie Star Trials are annuals. If you're wanting perennials, it's the Prairie Bloom series, and K-State also has that, but we do not try these here right now.
Okay. The cannas are really pretty too.
Yes, I like those. The Canova series, there's 4 different colors. There's red shades, rose, yellow, and a lemon. We do not have the yellow here. The Colby Research Center has them, and really brilliant happy face yellow. When I saw that, it made me happy, I guess, but it was a nice surprise. Another one that is everybody has commented about is the, I'll try to get this right, it's Silopia, the Silky Formula Mix. It's kind of a milkweed. I think this will be attractive to your monarch butterflies, especially the caterpillars, and so this kind of gives them a food source. It's done rather well, although it does seed a lot, and so I think we'll have some volunteer, which is good because I want to plant it next year.
Good. And it's the orange.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes, it has orange flowers.
Mm-hmm. The Rudbeckia, how did it do?
Not as good as I wanted. It has a problem with worms.
Oh, yes,
the caterpillars come out, and we had to spray them. We do not spray any of the flowers out here because we want to see what kind of pathogens will affect them, insects or diseases, and so consequently with the black caterpillars, I couldn't help it. I had to spray them.
Yes, or else you wouldn't have it.
They defoliate the plant, and all you have are the blossoms, and well, it'll die. So you do have to spray that, but well, that's what you have to do. And then there's a new variety which is really exciting. I think it's a combination of the Echinacea and the Rudbeckia, and Echinacea and the Rudbeckia. It's yellow and an orange color, and so we'll probably test those again next year.
I like the Gomphrena too. They look kind of like straw flowers, but they're just round.
Yes, they are a straw flower. You can dry them. The Las Vegas series, and then there's also one that's new this year, the KISS series. It's K-I-Q-I-S, and I love the colors. It's a different hue than the purple and the white and the pink.
Well, we could go on for a long time, but we are going to have to break now, and I want to thank you for coming on the show and telling us your expertise about the flowers. And when we come back, we'll be talking to Holly about trees.
You should never run out of the important stuff.
Really?
If your current wireless plan leaves you at the end of your rope, imagine how you'll feel with Nex-Tech Wireless with unlimited everything. Nex-Tech Wireless gives you the freedom to go as far as you want. Nex-Tech Wireless, something different.
In a recent independent study that compared Nex-Tech and the local cable company, internet pages loaded 16.9% faster with Nex-Tech internet and performed better in every category tested. Leave your slow internet behind. Switch to Nex-Tech and we'll give you a month free just to try it. Plus, mention this ad and the code BESTPRICE and we'll give you a great discount too. Certain restrictions apply. Switch to Nex-Tech internet. Proven to be the fastest.
We're back with Holly Dickman, and she's going to talk to us about trees. Now, we have talked about trees with the Arbor Day program, and that was in the spring, and now we're going into fall, and so there are different kinds of things that happen in fall than in spring. So even though we might say some things similar, we'll give you some other information too. So welcome, Holly.
Thank you, Linda. Well, fall is actually an ideal time to plant trees, and so that's why it's always good to talk about it at this time of year. You know, yes, spring is an okay time to plant trees, but fall is actually a really ideal time because we're going into cooler temperatures versus the hotter temperatures of summer. Those root systems are still growing, even though the top of the tree may have lost its leaves and looks, dormant. That root system still is very active during the fall and in the early spring. So if you plant a tree in the fall, you give it a little bit extra time to get that root system established before we get into those really hot months of June, July, and August during the summer. So fall is actually the ideal time to plant trees. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
All right.
So when you go to plant a tree, there are many things to think about. One is the right plant in the right place. We know that living in western Kansas, there are trees that will not grow here, or at least not as well as trees that they can grow in eastern Kansas. So
Because of the rain.
because of rainfall, because of soil, we have very high pH soils here, and that a lot of times is a limiting factor with some of our tree choices. But yes, rainfall and soil are two of the biggest factors when it comes to tree selection. With that being said, there are many trees to choose from that will do just fine here. And so we have tree lists available through the Extension Office of trees that are recommended to plant in Ellis County and the whole northwest area of the state. We are standing next to an oak tree, an English oak. Actually, it's a columnar oak. Fastigiata is the cultivar, which is kind of hard to say, but this is a really nice tree selection for our area, very drought tolerant, tolerates our high pH soil, and does very well here. This is a more narrow shaped tree, so a lot of our landscapes now may be smaller, especially in the middle of town or those new developments where the side yards are very narrow and you don't have a lot of space. This may be an option to consider, some of those columnar type trees. But going back to the right plant in the right place, you have to make sure it works for your location.
And I was going to say, because it's got these tall trees around, the column part is a good thing for right here.
Right. You know, this is one that will not get very wide, and that's one thing I always emphasize to people too. When you're picking plants for your landscape, make sure you take into account that mature size. You don't want to just go by what you're seeing at the store right now, and even though it looks cute in that little gallon container right now, think about the mature size. When you purchase a tree, it'll have the label on it. It'll tell you what the ultimate mature size of that tree could be, and on an oak like this, it could be 30-40 feet depending on the species. But you know, some of our big shade trees, elms, bur oak, hackberries, those types of trees can get upwards of 50 foot tall, and so you need to make sure that you have actual space in your yard for that tree as it grows and gets bigger.
Will this one get a lot bigger around?
It'll get quite a bit bigger, but probably only about 4 to 5 feet, I think, if I remember correctly. I'd have to double check. But once again, make sure you read that label and see exactly what the mature size will be of that tree. So that's, you know, the right plant, right place. Make sure it grows here. Make sure you have the correct space you need to have it in your landscape.
And that's always something that is a little bit hard to do, because even though you are thinking about that, you just want to get them kind of close together, and then they're a problem.
Giving them correct space is extremely important, because as those trees grow, they're competing with one another. If this would be a big bur oak, it would be crowding into those other trees. You need to give it the space it deserves. So that is one thing to consider when shopping for plants for the landscape.
So let's talk about when we put it in. I don't know where I got the idea, but a lot of people have it, and that is that when you plant a tree, you should dig this big hole, but that isn't the case. So tell us about that.
Well, recommendation is to dig the hole at least twice as wide as the root ball or the container. So that means if you have a gallon container, you want to make that hole at least twice as wide as that gallon-sized container. The depth is more of a concern, because you want to make sure that you do not plant the tree too deeply. And when we're talking about a tree like this, deciduous tree, or really any tree, you want to make sure that the root flare, which is the area where the trunk meets the roots on the tree, you want to make sure that that's right at the surface of the soil. So the guys at the Ag Research Center have done a really good job here, because you can actually see where this tree starts to flare out. And if you look at trees in nature, you know, in the woods and down by the creeks and things, a lot of the trees will have that natural flare where those root systems begin. That's a critical place for oxygen exchange, so you don't want to bury that or cover it with soil or mulch too deeply, because that can cause problems with the health of the tree in the long run. It'll slow them down. And so that is one thing that we do recommend, is you do not plant too deeply. So sometimes when you have that gallon-sized container for your tree, your planting hole doesn't need to be this deep. It might actually only be 6 to 8 inches deep. So you just want to go as deep as that root flare down to the bottom of that root system, and that would be your depth of hole.
And the roots go out.
The roots go out. Another misconception is that tree roots all go down deep, searching for water. And while there are some anchor roots that go deep, the majority of any tree's root system is within the top 12 to 18 inches, and it looks more like a pancake flat under the ground versus the carrot like the old books used to show.
And that is a misconception because I know a lot of people do think that.
Yeah.
So
the other thing when you're planting trees is that you want to make sure and water, certainly. Newly planted trees have that limited root system, so you need to water on a regular basis. And trees a lot of times will take sometimes 2 to 3 years to get fully established, so you want to make sure and give it that extra care for that time frame till establishment. When we talk about watering trees, we talk about watering deeply, but not very often. So you want to make sure and soak that root ball or that root system and then let it go for quite a while before you come back and water again. So we're talking on a tree like this during the heat of summer, maybe once a week should be plenty for watering. Now if you have very sandy soil, which some places in the county might, you might be watering a little more often just simply because of the type of soil that you have, and that water moves through quicker than a heavy clay soil.
and if you are where you're not going to have the water source near you, doing this and making a little trench around it so the water will stay close to the trunk is a good idea, is it not?
Well, yes. If you have to just dump a bunch of water on the tree at one time and then walk away, that's a nice way to kind of contain water. The City Parks Department's really good about doing that. They'll build up a nice little trench around the outside, you know, around the tree, and then the water will be contained in there while it soaks down. If you're in a landscape, you can certainly do that, or you can just let a garden hose trickle very slowly and let it water and soak the tree that way. Or if you have the means to do this, it's kind of, there are other methods of watering young trees. You can use soaker hose to kind of spiral around the tree and use that to soak the water in deeply. Or if you have a 5-gallon bucket, you can take that and put a tiny little hole down at the bottom, fill it with water, let that seep out on one side, move it to the other side, and let it seep out on that side, and you will have given the tree 10 gallons of water, which is somewhat of a rule of thumb as to how much that tree would need.
At the Hayes Med Center, they were doing that. When I came to the Center for Health Improvement, they had one of those things that was dripping, and then one day they put it on the other side. So
yeah. And they do sell products out there that are designed to do that, plastic type bags that have little tiny holes in them. Those are available, but a kind of a poor man's version is to take a plastic bucket or a container of some kind and make that your own, on your own, and just put the holes down at the base and fill with water and let it seep out slowly. So that is a method of watering.
Well, let's talk about some trees that are good to grow here, because we have the climate that doesn't allow for every tree to do well, but maybe that's not the only reason. But there are some trees that are preferred to be here and some that are not.
Right. Well, like I said, we have lists available at the Extension office. The City of Hayes also has a list available with their rebate program, which we'll talk about in just a second. But when we talk about trees for the area, we want to talk about things that are drought tolerant and things that are very tough. And so we're talking some of our native trees like hackberries and black walnuts and honey locusts and things like that, but also including bur oaks, English oaks, those types of things. So I'm going to let you talk about the rebate program before we run out of time here. So,
well, I don't maybe know as much as you think I do about that. So, but I'll just show you the brochure that you could pick up at the Extension office and maybe at the city offices.
Right, the City Parks Department.
Okay, and the brochure does show you the trees that would be preferred that you would plant here, and there are people from the Hayes Beautification Committee that have gone to put labels on some trees so that if you buy them locally, they will be marked to know that you will know they are the ones to choose that would grow well here. But as far as how much you get back, and
Right.
that, I'm going to let you talk about that.
Well, the tree rebate program is a program of the City of Hayes, so you have to be a resident of the city to participate. But this is where you can get up to $50 back on the purchase of a tree. And, you know, if you're buying a small tree, that's a pretty good rebate.
Yes, it is.
The idea is to encourage the planting of trees throughout the city. So the more trees that can be planted, the more beautiful the city, the more diversity we can have. And that's why the city does have a list of preferred and accepted trees that you have to choose from, essentially, to be accepted for this rebate. But it is something that people should check into. The City Parks Department, the Extension Office, all the local tree retailers should have these brochures, or you can find it online at the City of Hayes' website.
Okay, and at our last beautification committee meeting, Jeff Boyle was talking about how people have really been using this program, and he thinks it's because the last winter was kind of tough, and
Right.
also the drought has been happening, and so that's a good thing that people are becoming aware of the program. So,
Right.
well, I think we need to wind it up, so I am appreciative that you came today, and we hope that the information that we supplied to people about how to plant and what to plant will be of help to them. So, thank you for watching The Garden Show.